So give me the high level intro. Whet people's
So,
appetite.
have you ever been to the Pride of Spitalfields in Shoreditch?
Is it like a bar?
Well, I would consider it a pub, actually. But yeah,
I've heard of it.
this place is, as I found out yesterday, associated with Jack the Ripper, which is kind of funky. Anyway, it's this brilliant East End pub that even only in 2003 got petrol bombed, to give you an idea of what the East End of London was like 20 years ago. Anyway, it's a favourite place that Ben and I used to go when we had an office in Brick Lane. So we thought, let's go there. Let's go there before a conference yesterday. Conference on CXOs or fintech. And we got talking about the business. We got talking, as you do as founders, about the things that are great and the things that aren't so great. And guess what came up? So, check this out for a start. I mean, you can.
Is it guessable or is it just a fool's errand?
Yeah, no, it's that. Yeah, it's not guessable.
Okay.
That'd be a pointless exercise. So, we're a professional services business, essentially. Right? What we do is we build product. We build product for startup founders and scale-ups. And our venture deals are arranged that we will work at cost. So cost to company for that person in our business. So front-end engineer, back-end engineer, designer. They come to a cost, we employ them, cost to our company, and we pass that straight through to our startups. Great. And then in exchange, we get an equity position. We grow the value of that equity. Now, when I constructed this business model, and Ben then absolutely with his big brain kind of evolved it, it all works. And we were curious that the last 6 months when we look at it, we were just like, it's just not enough money in the business. There's just not enough money coming through the door. And he did an analysis. Guess what our recovery percentage is? So recovery of actual cash in to the business on our venture rates.
What do you mean? Per...
So imagine we charge 100. How much do you think we get through the door?
Oh, I see. 30%?
Well, if we got 30% through the business, we'd be out of business, so it's not that low. You should, bear in mind, a business should recover what it should charge. So it should recover 100.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant what should you get? Like
not.
Oh, I see what you mean. I don't know. Is it under what you pay?
Well, so if we charge out 100, we would expect to get 100 in from those founders because they've signed a contract, we've gone into agreement, everything's based on us paying cost. Yeah. We recover £55 of every 100 we should be recovering. 55% recovery, which means we are essentially losing £45 on every single hour. Every single £100 that we have in the business.
Why does that happen? Just because you end up doing more?
So that's part of it. And I think this is an interesting conversation. Like actually going, okay, that's a figure. How do we actually break that down? What's actually going on? Comes down to a couple of things. Flow of work. So efficiencies, a bit like logistics. Like you want to move pallets around the country. How do you make sure people are utilised all the time? So there's a utilisation issue. There is a mix of, I guess, seniority or experience issue. Because sometimes you've got juniors or grads coming in that maybe are learning on their journey and they're not necessarily producing something that is always worth paying for. So I think there's a quality thing, but it's a quality through experience thing, which I think we need to learn how to factor that in. So maybe there is a graduate rate that we bring in, but is recovered strongly against because maybe we need to introduce another level down. So I think it's those two things, and also I think it's about upholding the deal and the agreement, and I think there is a tendency for us to be probably a bit too giving in what we do because we're an investor and we believe in them. We probably don't drive hard like a lot of traditional agencies would, and we don't control the capital. But recoveries like that, it just greatly affects our capability to grow and to provide a better service.
How much of your utilization is on the venture stuff versus the normal professional?
Our utilization has always been pretty strong. I mean, we build tech product. You can always find work. If you wanted to buy revenue, as we call it, you could always do that, right? You can always go and find the work. So our utilization has been pretty good. It's not great the last 4 months or so, and that's because of what's been going on in the world. There's been a big kind of like retraction in how people want to spend money, but it's historically been really, really good. I would say our billable utilization sits between 75 to 85%, and then there's what we call authorized projects, which is where people do training, they do things for the business, they do professional development, they do counselling, they do all of the things that you need to grow a career with somebody. So you can't expect 100% utilization. But we've designed our rates and designed our costs to cover that, to make sure that the customer isn't always paying for that, and it's kind of balanced out. But when we recover only 55% of what we're billing out, that's just it's encouraging, because it means we found something we need to go and focus on. That means all the way from growth, so all the way from the way that I open conversations up with new founders we're investing in. Respect these rate cards, respect these salaries. This is because it's a two-way street, right? Obviously. So we've got to go in there and say, this person at this rate is this much. You've got to respect that. Here's the contract to bind you by that. And then when it comes down to our quality, we've got to make sure that we're driving excellence. And we are absolutely on a path to that. We really, really are. And we make leaps and bounds forward because we learn from every single thing that we go through. And I'm very proud of that. So a mix between respecting that rate card and controlling the governance around that rate card with a founder that is cash strapped and very, very keen to save every penny and will lean on any partnership opportunity possible is one piece. And then the other side is more Ben's side, which is about quality. It's about delivery and making sure that our people our teams are thinking and outputting quality to match the value of what they're getting. Because long term, we're just pushing water uphill. We have to go and get the work from Diageo and Disney and Dell to essentially cover that hole instead of recovering that hole initially. If we got full recovery from our ventures, I think we would we'd have an 80-20 split. So we'd have 80% ventures, 20% LTP. The LTPs would power our growth, and the ventures is what we really want to get into. We're currently 50-50.
What's the split now?
50-50. And the model works, right? I mean, we've grown to 115 people. It works, but it's not efficient. And I think it was just Ben's obviously been probably processing this in his thinking for a while, but it really landed with me when he did this analysis. And it's just remarkable that those little things, well, it's a big thing, but that little thing could be significantly changing to the quality of service that we can offer these startups. Because if we can recover that gives us the money to pay the salaries, which means we don't have to focus on that, which gives us complete focus on building brilliant businesses. So yeah, that was one piece. Should I keep going?
Yeah.
The other thing with Alpha, and I wrote this to you last night, I was like, I want to talk about Alpha because I think Alpha's not it's not discussed very often outside of the investment kind of space, because that's obviously what it is. So when you partner with people, I'm sure you'll get this with marketing pros, I'm sure you get this certainly with Kalium. When you partner with somebody and they take you on as a service provider in a purest sense, they're paying you to do what is essentially written in a contract, what is written in a scheme of work, a schedule of work. And that could be anything from the great copy work, SEO, marketing stuff that you do, all the way through to our engineers, our designers. And that's a given. But it's the things that sit with organizations around that makes it, that is the value, that is the alpha, that's the step change in a relationship. And I was just thinking that, we don't, probably you don't, and I don't think we do, and I don't think many, many businesses do. I don't think they actually think and celebrate the alpha that they provide to a relationship. Because I think there's so much in what we do, what we bring from an experience perspective, and I'm not saying just you and I, but agency owners, people who provide services, that goes above and beyond the actual service that we're providing. It's somewhat intangible. The things that we can actually do. Like, for example, we've got one of our investments, Echo. Great business, great founder, superb. we have consistently supported Echo when it comes to growth, business development. We've consistently supported them outside of the building a tech product through the supporting Ollie through strategy, so monthly check-ins. And, he often goes and talks to his investors about why Mahara is better than a dev shop or a couple of internal engineers, for example. Because you think about what that provides. A dev shop is a transactional thing where they go and execute against a piece of paper and then they chuck product back. An internal employee will no doubt feed in, but they'll be specialists in what they do, and they won't necessarily have that organizational strength or experience to be able to provide that insight to that startup. And I just think the alpha that companies provide is just not celebrated or not seen or identified. And I think what we all need to do is to start to think about the alpha that we do bring to these companies and start to celebrate and talk about it. Because I know that Mahara does. I think our alpha is incredible for what we provide to these startup founders. I really do. And I think if a lot of our startup founders, imagine the relationship didn't work out, and then they went to an offshore company, no doubt great engineers, but what they're going to get from that is just product. They're not going to get guidance. They're not going to get the 55% recovery rate and the investment in their business and all of those things that are what an early stage business needs. And it's, I'm sure it's the same with Kalium. So, the two key things that really came out of it was just like, holy shit, recovery. That's a key thing. Looking deep at the numbers and trying to pick away the problem and then thinking, right, what can we do here? And I've got ideas already about what we're going to do about it. And then the other piece is like, actually look at your business and think about alpha. What alpha do you provide to a relationship? And if you're purely transactional, well, what's your USP going to be for that alpha to drive their business forward, to make that relationship better than everybody else? Because that's what alpha is about. It's an unfair advantage to the person that you're working with or that you're investing in.
So what would it be for like for us, for example? What would be an alpha thing?
For Kalium, I think your biggest. Yeah, I mean, I think your biggest thing, like you essentially sell content services, right? Everything from strategy through to execution. That's what you do.
Mainly sort of SEO focused, but
SEO, SEO as well. I don't know the full gamut, but the thing that you do, that I know that you do, is that you are already thinking about opportunities in industries and markets that are underserved. Right? Now that means that you as a founder and your team are already looking at opportunities outside of what you currently do as a services business to extend Kalium. So I would argue that the way that you view taking Kalium forward and your labs business forward and probably Marketing Pros to a degree, nice little conglomerate of businesses you've got now, Doug. I think that I would argue that your USP, your alpha, is the fact that you look at things strategically, you look at things entrepreneurially. You're going to be taking what they're trying to do and looking at it in a different lens, rather than, thanks very much for that, let's go and execute that pure brief. Mm-hmm. So I think in a way you're similar to us in the fact that you are invested enough to be able to think entrepreneurially and strategically around their business. And I think a lot of content SEO agencies probably don't. I don't know that, but I'd argue they probably don't. And I know you well, and I know what you're trying to do well. And I think that, off the top of my head, sound like I'm from East London, didn't I?
Too long in Shoreditch last night.
Yeah, I've been hanging around down there. Yeah, Pride of Spitalfields, mate.
No one from East London left in Shoreditch. I don't think. I suppose it's probably there. Okay, cool. I like that. All right. Well, let's hear how that goes for you guys.
Yeah,
I like the alpha things. Interesting. I've got quite a bit actually today. Have you got anything else?
Nah, I'm tapped out, mate.
All right. I want your view on a name. I want us to think about this podcast. Like, what the fuck is it? And how are we going to grow it? Because I just had a few questions for you, and I just thought, instead of doing it offline, let's just do it online. And then I've got two ideas. And I know you're thinking, all right, it's early Friday morning and this batch is in trouble, but we can do this quickly.
Okay.
I need to create a small holding company to like hold. I've got like Kalium, and then I've got Marketing Pros, and then there's this kind of other kind of content site.
Yeah.
And it's really just the name of it. So I like the idea of something tortoise.
Is this the holding company name?
Yeah, it's holding company name. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it, to be honest, is from my own psychology. Like, I don't think there's like any real tax advantages at this stage with the kind of size that we're at to have that. But it's just me thinking of it through that lens rather than just getting into the weeds all the time of the agency, because I just find myself tending towards that. Whereas if I sort of change my mindset and I'm like, no, like that's part of a bigger group, I think it will just prompt me to change my activities a little bit and be a little bit more strategic.
Yeah, no, I get it. We've got a holding company. Our holding company name's ridiculous. We've got a nice little backstory to it.
Is it Hearthstone?
Okay. No.
Okay.
That's legacy. That.
All right. So I was going to call it Tortoise Capital, unusually good businesses that last. What do you think?
What LLP or something?
Just be like a limited. I think you just can make it as a limited company. I'm not sure. I need to check that.
It depends how you think about things getting acquired. Think carefully about your structure. If you want, you'd ideally want to separate them with an limited and then have an LLP up top, so that you could sell Kalium and the LLP receives the funds from that, but you don't get the other two. That's what we do.
Okay. All right. So structure aside, the name.
So Tortoise. Well, go on then. Tortoise what?
So we've got Tortoise Capital, but Tortoise Capital, and then it's unusually good businesses that last, right? Capital is taken, so I was like, okay. And then I thought Tortoise Ventures, which isn't taken.
I mean, tortoises, what are they? They're slow, consistent, and they only work in the heat.
Do you think the connotations are just too shit?
No, I think the connotations of a tortoise are great. I mean, I had a tortoise called R2D2. That little guy was like a Duracell tortoise. Just like that. Constantly.
Okay. So the idea is that it's like, the reality is that I'm not always going to just build like slow businesses, but I do like the idea of the concept is that you're building businesses that last and that are really high quality and just fucking go on and on.
Yeah, but the question for me is, what always wins the race? To be cheesy, it's the thing. It is right. It's the tortoise and the hare, isn't it?
Yeah. Is
that the fable? Yeah. Why not? Also, who doesn't love a tortoise?
Who doesn't love
Think about the iconography. Yeah. Iconography of the tortoise. You could, I want some deep fake stuff with Blomley's face on that tortoise just talking at us. That's what I want.
Yeah, talking about the operations. All right. Second thing then is, let's not talk about growing the podcast now, but I did think a lot when I was away about what it is. And I don't think we need an answer for that now, because I know we're just going to do 10, aren't we? And we're just going to see what direction we think it is. But I think it just needs a kind of, it sounds a little bit corny, but I think it needs a bit of a purpose. And I'm starting to think that you've got to trick your mind into certain things. So like the idea of having a holding company is just really just a trick to make sure that I sort of think of things in a certain way and then behave in a certain way. And this having a purpose is just a way of, I think, keeping us really, really motivated. And I don't think the purpose has to be grandiose at all. It could be as simple as just helping business people feel they're not alone because there's other weirdos talking about random ideas on a podcast. And there's a podcast called The Tropical MBA that's their vibe. It's like, you are not alone. In your earbuds, there's all these other entrepreneurs. So I don't think it's one we need to arrive at now, but do you have any thoughts?
So purposes in terms of giving back, or purposes in reason to exist?
Yeah, like what's the one line point of the what is the podcast? What's its reason for being? Because I don't think it's pure, like it is obviously commercial in that we want it to drive traffic to the businesses and maybe it can make money in its own right and throw up all these opportunities. That's its kind of commercial goal. That's fine. I think we're pretty clear on that. We like doing it, so that makes sense. But like, what are we serving? Like, who are we serving?
So, I would like to think that we are serving people who own businesses, people who are thinking about starting businesses, and people who are on an entrepreneurial journey. Now, the content that I think we need to provide to them, or that actually what I would want to listen to and what I would like to seek out and what I think is missing, is a real mix of anecdotal experience, startup news, ideas, stories, and things that we find and research within inside of the sphere that we know and love, brought to the fore. We love the My First Million podcast, and we love the style that they do things in. But I think there's room for a pretty much just a podcast around that, and one that's consistent, because I think the thing that we need to do is to have a variety of content around those themes. Yeah. I think unearthing great new businesses and showcasing great new startups is a fantastic thing. I think we can touch on, the likes of the impact of AI and stuff like that, but we need to make sure that this is good, thorough thinking and research content. And I think that's one thing that I've been thinking about when you've been in the States, getting fat like me, is about how do we make sure that what we're talking about we truly care about, because I think that passion comes across, and I think it comes down to consistency. I think it comes down to interest, and I just keep coming back to, I care about discovering great new businesses, great new ideas, challenging thought around why things have gone a certain way they have, and looking to the future of what on earth we're trying to do and what on earth this is going to be like for an entrepreneur. So I think, rooted in that, I don't, as you know, I think there are a lot of things out there around how to build great product and how to do all of that kind of stuff. And I think what I really care about is how to build a great business and how to go through the things that you need to go through to build that business. Like, even weirdly, like discovering that you've got really shit recovery in your in the business that you work.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's ideas. I mean, the tactics, what we talk about, can be really, really broad, but I think it's ideas and inspiration. And maybe something around like real experiences or something like that. I'm not sure if that comes under ideas and inspiration, but I like the idea that people can see what we kind of go through, and it helps them to, it helps them in terms of their thinking, but also, like, I think they just should look forward to listening to it, because it just sort of fires them up listening to us talk about ideas. That would be my ideal scenario. All right, ideas, inspiration, and real life experiences. Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
I've got 2 ideas.
Okay.
Idea 1. From the US, I was forced to go to this thing called the Slimy Institute in New York, which is the Museum of Slime, which is where kids go, and it's like an experience where you go and feel different types of slime. Obviously, having that in the itinerary, I'm not pleased. It's a total compromise based on the fact that we've just dragged our 7-year-old to, like, NBA basketball matches. But I was really just so surprised how good it was. It was very simple. They just had all these like big buckets of these different types of slime, which is just so addictive to play with. Like, dozens and dozens of these different types of slime. And then a little bit of experience stuff, like you can go in these mirrors and you can go in different sounds, and like you can then like make your own slime. So you go through this kind of factory process where you choose the smell and the different type of slime and the color and all of that. And then there's like a little slime based soft play thing at the end. And there is nothing. It's a pretty basic unit. It's not massive. It's in like Manhattan, so it's clearly going to be ridiculously expensive. But it's not like a huge unit. It's the size of probably a decent sized pub. And I don't the way it wouldn't cost you a ton to fit it out, so it's not hardcore costs to get it going, apart from the rent of the unit would be. And I don't think it would be that hard to put it together. Like maybe making the slime is difficult, but I doubt it. Nothing like that in London that I can see. I haven't had a really extensive look, but nothing at this scale. If you had this in anywhere in London, you would have a queue, and you marketed it not like a complete idiot. You would have a queue snaking around the door for 7 days a week, the whole
Hang
time.
on.
And I
so we're talking
why has no one done it? Is it just they just haven't done it? Because you could charge a lot as well. They were charging $100 for 2 tickets in the US. Maybe it's a little bit less here, but I think you could make 3 to 5 million through the gate every year. Is my guess.
What do you do there? What do you do? You go in and like the slime from the 90s, that kind of slime.
I don't really know its origin. I literally knew nothing about slime before I went to this. But it's like, it's sort of soft putty, and you pull it around, and there's different types of it, hard ones and stretchy ones, and ones with little bits in. And it's just the thing that the kids love. They just go wild for it. And I don't really know why, but it is quite nice to sort of play with, even as an adult. And I've never
And you just put it in your hands.
Yeah, you've really got no idea. To be fair, I didn't. It's just buy a little tub of it. You just put it in your hands. It's like blue tack, kind of like a blue tack, but just way cooler to play with.
But is it like a? Do you get in it? Is it like a ball pit, or do you just sit there on a chair and play with this slime?
So it starts. They've just got these
what's this thing called? I'm looking
with it in, just for different types, and you just stand there and you just play with it, and kids just stand there, they're just moving it around. There's a few of those, and then the set pieces that you make. Sorry,
do you rent it or buy it?
Say that again, Rich. You just broke up.
Do you rent it or buy it? Oh wow! You throw it against a wall.
Yeah, one of the bits is you can throw it against a wall, but the cool thing about the slime is just the way it feels, and you just play with it. Yeah, so you just pay a ticket to go in, and you just kind of move around the experience. You're in there for an hour and 20 minutes or something. So kids love it. Kids love it here. All kids will have known what slime is. If you went to your local primary school and just started handing out slime, they'd all know what it was. But there's nothing it's just an unbelievably successful tourist attraction. There's just literally a queue around the corner. There would be in London. Maybe I've missed it and I haven't found it. It's not well marketed. I haven't looked well enough. But if you had one of those in anywhere in central London, you would have a queue around the corner for the whole time. Could you make money? I don't know exactly, because I don't know the overhead. The slime might be expensive, but I doubt it. I doubt rents are that crazy these days in central London after everyone sort of moved out. I'm sure you could find a unit. I clearly will never do this because I hate brick and mortar stuff. And also, if you look on SEO, you look at searches for slime, it's ridiculous. There are hundreds of thousands of searches for this stuff. So it's a massive thing. So it would do well in London. The other thing that I thought, I would never do it in London. A, it would be too capital intensive, and B, like I said, I wouldn't do bricks and mortar. But if you did this in somewhere like Cape Town, in the waterfront there, probably 20x cheaper to set up. Obviously, you can't charge quite as much, but there's loads of tourists there. I think that would be... And it's totally universal. There is no city in the world where this is not going to work. In terms of kids liking it.
There are 2 places, Slime Planet and Slime Bar. Slime Bar is in
Slime Planet.
Slime Planet is in Radka Road. I don't quite know where that is, but Slime Planet strikes me as a shop, looking at the pictures. Oh no, it is. Yeah, it's like what you talked about.
Where is that?
Kids go absolutely mental for it, but it seems that it's parties. It's like a. Where is it? I don't know.
I think I saw that one.
Let's have a look where it is.
But yeah, I think there is an unbelievable amount of money in slime. So you can set up a venue. even if there is one, there's way space for more. You could run like kids' slime parties. That would be a brilliant business. You could probably create your own slime brand. It's just
that's what Slime Bar have done. It's called. It was quite interesting, this, isn't it? Slime by Molly is so she's just a shop. To be fair, she's not anything else. She's selling the slime.
To be fair, you know what? You could just set up, right? You know, on Oxford Street where they have those shops where they just peddle like that shit perfume for really cheap, and they've got the bloke out there with the microphone. No doubt you could just do something similar with slime. Have all these like mad colours of slime in, like, just rent out some unit, get a guy with a microphone being like, call all these different types of the best slime in the world, you know, £6 for a tub. You would just be inundated. Not sure about the gross margin on slime. It might be expensive to make, but I doubt.
Yeah, but how much they charge you to get in? I mean, it's New York, which means it's twice the price of what
to get in, one person.
How long? For
an hour and 20 minutes.
How many kids in there? Or people in there?
It's at capacity, I would say. They basically have a 15 minutes, they have a new entry. But I would say in a 15-minute block, you've got, I don't know, 20. There's kids just walking in all day, every 30 seconds or every minute. There's just a kid walking in all day. Every time I walk past it, anyway. So yeah, in an hour, you're probably looking at 50 go in, at least.
And then also they're buying the slime. They become obsessed with it. They pester the parents to buy it. All the rest of it.
There's a little gift shop that carves your eyes out your head. I think I bought 3 tubs of slime for Noah's mates, $15 a pop. Each little tub of slime probably cost about 4 cents to put together.
Yeah.
Love it.
I mean, it's one of those funny ones, isn't it? It's just like, you know, they've got 3 locations in Chicago. I think the other one was Toronto and London. No, not London, New York. And they've probably got a great business. Great business, just cruising. All they need to do is to make sure the experience of their customers is wicked. Their branding's on point, and then they've got a great business. It's how simple.
I think it's fairly simple. I think it would be capital intensive because you'd have to put up the rent in a good location. So to do this in the UK, you need $500,000 plus probably just to get moving at least. But
it depends on where you want to put it, right? You need to put it in a. I mean, you wouldn't start in London. You couldn't afford to. It cost you $200,000 a year just to rent a shop.
You could probably make it work in like Southend seafront. Obviously, you're not charging as much for kids to get in, but it's slime. You can anywhere will work, and you probably charge 15 or £20 to get in. Slightly different clientele, but
the future's bright. It's slimy. Great. Okay, I like it. What's the next idea?
The final idea is a B2B equities research company that looks at that actually uses experiences to gain insights on companies. So, for example, you're a family office or you're a fund manager or whatever, and you're looking at whether you should invest in a certain stock. And everyone's looking at the same information, aren't they? They've got the company report, they can look at the market, whatever, they can talk to other people. All that's fine. But surely there's a huge part of the equation where you actually go and experience the business and make an assessment of whether this business is any good based on that. So if you set up a company that's specialised in that element of experience, and I'm sure these exist, like I don't think this is a new idea, but I thought, for example, right, Deliveroo. I know we've spoken about this before, but is Deliveroo a good equity? Well, I'm sure there's loads of I'm sure you can look at the financial statements and all that shit, and you'll glean some insights, and you have your own view on the market. But surely there's huge value in going and understanding what it's like to be a Deliveroo rider, and just going, okay, look, these riders, do they like it? Do they hate it? Has anyone bothered to ask them? No one really knows. Let's say you got 10 people that just went and they were Deliveroo drivers for a month across all different parts of the UK, and then they reported back on what it was like dealing with Deliveroo, what the experience was like, talking to the other delivery drivers, how much they liked it, you would get an unbelievable insight on that side of the marketplace. And that would really give you an edge on, cool, do I think this business is going to do well? Do I think it's going to do shit? And like a simple example is just retail stores or like restaurant chains just going in. So like Wagamama's, I'm pretty sure it's private, you can't buy shares, but let's just assume it was public. I always thought, why don't they have more units around the UK? Like, people love that. They love Wagamama's. Why don't they just have units everywhere? They never had one in Southend. And then they brought one to Southend. And sure enough, they had queues outside the door. But the massive problem that they had was they still can't get the quality right. So Wagamama's in big cities, the quality is always the same. You get Edinburgh, London, Bristol, whatever, the quality is fine. You go to Southend, and it is patchy. And I'm sure the reason is because they just cannot find the quality chefs. It's probably not that easy, is it, to run a Wagamama's kitchen? And they're probably not paying that much. In a big city, you can maybe just about make that equation work because there's enough talent. You come to Southend and you're fucked because you just cannot... Who out there is going to be good enough to work in a Wagamama's kitchen that would probably want to work in a Wagamama's kitchen versus just working at the local pub? And they just can't get that right. They can't get the staffing. So that's a huge insight into, is Wagamama's actually a good investment or not? That's a massive blocker for them. And you'd only know that. I only know that because I've really experienced it. I've tried to order from them 4 or 5 times. I've, been in there, and quality is always shit. And then you look at the kitchen and there's like one bloke just like grinding away in there. They just clearly can't get the people. You don't see that on financial statements. So I'm sure this stuff exists. I'm not saying this is a new idea, but I think you could set up a company that just maybe focused on a specific marketplace niche or restaurants or retail or something that just said, look, we're going to go and we're going to like get first-hand experience of this business, and that's going to inform your investment.
Well, basically, I mean, I'm sure it does exist, but it's an interesting thing, and certainly from being an investor in as many companies as I am, although they're startups, what we think we provide for investors in the future is that experience of living the business as an investor ourselves. So we think that insight is super, super important because you're underneath the covers, if you will, and you get to see what it's like. I think it's experiential due diligence, isn't it? That's what it is.
What I'd call it.
Yeah, experiential DD.
Because you're right. Because we work with about 20 or 30 companies, and there are some that I would definitely want shares in if I could get them, and there are others that I just don't think that there's just so many flaws in the way that they do things that we probably would be harder to. I wouldn't want shares. So actually, we have this huge insight as a sort of agency. Obviously, we would never tell that information. But yeah, I think the experiential due diligence is a sector.
Experiential DD and slime. I think we should do both, Doug. Let's go and pull some money together. Go into the slime world and the experiential DD world.
Slime world, Nottingham.
Yeah, great. Okay, magic. Well, until next time, fine sir.
See you next week.
Very enjoyable to you.